had a question on the Western States.
Say $1,500?
Yeah.
That was radiator for the backup.
Just had a couple questions too. On that Idaho Rural Water Association, we showed two 195s for the same date.
Yes, because we have to split it out for water and sewer.
Oh, okay.
So the total amount.
That makes sense. And then below that Western States, there's a bunch of stuff at Ziggy's.
Yeah, there was a Ziggy's one, but it was divided out, allocated out to all the departments, so to speak.
I just wondering what it was.
For what?
It was like $1,200.
Yes, playground equipment, that we needed.
Okay.
A lot of it was, yeah, it was all playground.
Shouldn't that go to park though? Or don't we have a line item for the thing?
Yes, there was one for the park at Peak, the roofing. We fixed the roof on that, I think it was the concession, no, the dugout.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions? I move to approve the bills from June.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Oh, sorry.
I was just waiting for my next section.
First.
Okay, so just an update on the wastewater facility planning effort and where we're at with that. Dodd's got a piece that he's going to share, and we've been interacting quite a bit lately. So as far as the status for the plan itself, we did get comments. We finally got comments back from USDA. They had a hard time getting around to it with their setbacks with coronavirus and so forth, and so their backlog got stacked up. But they got comments back to us last week, so now we have comments from DEQ and USDA that we're addressing concurrently. They were pretty minor from both entities. It's just a few clarifications and things that we're going to edit, or we're in the process of editing. So that means that this facility plan will be ready for public comment, and one of the things that we do for that is we can provide a copy that can sit here at City Hall that anyone can come and look at and review. If the city wants to put a copy of the PDF of it on their website and folks can access it there, that's another option. And then also we need to be able to do a presentation for the public. So that we can present kind of a summary of the facility plan, what projects were identified from it, what needs there are at the wastewater plant and in the sewer collection system. And then of course, if there's any comments from the public, that's something that we can still make some changes to the facility plan if we need to. Because it's not final until after we get through that. The other aspect of the facility plan that will need public comment and review is the environmental report, which is part of it. And so we usually don't get comments on that, but it is something that folks can review and comment on if they want to. But just to give you a sneak peek, we don't anticipate any environmental concerns with any of the improvements identified in here, because we're proposing improvements in the same locations that you already have improvements. So we're not proposing to dig up a wetlands or anything like that. So that is a meeting that we hope to be able to take place in the near future. After I talked to you, Wendy, I talked to Dodd a little bit, and we were thinking that we may not be able to wait until September. But if your next council meeting is busy enough with budget hearings and so forth, it wouldn't be out of order for us to consider doing a special meeting with the sole focus being on this, that we could do either a week before the next council meeting or a week after. I'm assuming that you would prefer that it not be the same week. But we do need to hear back from the city and kind of have Wendy given the direction on when that can happen so that we can work with her on putting out a notice to the public that needs to be out at least 2 weeks beforehand.
Publish once or twice.
It doesn't necessarily have to publish in a paper, but it does need to be something that folks have access to. So it could go out with your utility billings. It just needs to be a notification that's out at least 2 weeks in advance so folks have the ability to come if they want to. So that's that aspect of it. The other part that Dodd and I were talking about, so right now the way that the funding letter of interest went into DEQ earlier this year, it was presented as one large project to fix the wastewater plant. In more recent discussions, we've talked about maybe splitting the project up into 2 phases, where phase 1 would happen in year 1 and phase 2 would happen in year 2. And the reason for that is the funding that Dodd is working on. He can elaborate a little bit more on that, but we're trying to maximize the amount of grant that the city can get, which means that the loan component of doing the upgrades is smaller. So that's our main goal, is to try to keep that loan amount as small as possible. And that's also the reason that we're applying to so many different agencies. For those that didn't hear at the last meeting, DEQ's funding offer includes $500,000 worth of principal forgiveness, which is essentially treated as grant. That's the amount of the loan that's forgiven at the end of the project. And then Dodd can talk to you about what he's working on. We also submitted a letter of interest to the Army Corps of Engineers earlier this year. I think we sent it in February. It'll be a while, they said, before we hear back from them, so we don't know yet. I'll try to get an update on what their overall timeline is to share with the council. And then other ones that we plan on helping out with are an application to USDA Rural Development, which can always bring in a grant component for communities that need it. Usually their grant percentage is anywhere from 25% to sometimes as high as 45%. It just depends on the financial need of the community, so they have to look at the income level for everyone. So we talked to Howard Lunderstadt at USDA, and his suggestion was not to worry about putting in an application yet. They already have a lot of your information, and they said you really don't need to put an application in with them until we're closer to starting the project. Because the way that we're trying to work it out is we're trying to work out that USDA funding would be the final funding, and you would use DEQ funding for like your interim financing. And that way we're stacking grant on top of grant, and we're getting a larger grant total out of your project. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I'm trying to think if there's something else I was going to cover. If you haven't already, we need to make sure that DEQ knows that you're still interested in their funding and that you stay on their list. They usually like to hear by the end of June, but you can still reach out to them now. So Charlie Parkins is the guy that you need to talk to, and I've sent some emails about it, but if no one has sent an email saying we're still interested, that needs to happen. That doesn't mean that you're on the hook and signing your loan contract and agreement with them tomorrow. It just means that you're staying on the list and they're not bumping you off and handing your funding to somebody else. So if that hasn't happened, if that could take place, and then bond counsel, I guess I'll touch on that and you can fill in what I miss. So in order for the city to proceed with a large project like this, there's almost always at least a portion of the project that's a loan component. And for a city to go into debt in any amount, even if it's $1, you have to have approval for either from the voters or from a judge. And so the voter one obviously happens in an election. And if the election passes, then that allows the council to be able to proceed with a project that would include some loan component to it. Usually in a bond election, not usually, always in a bond election, there's a dollar amount that's listed and a description of the project. And that's something that between us and Dodd will help the city with their bond counsel formulate that. But that way the voters know what they're voting on. And it's not that, you know, after that passes that the city can then turn around and just immediately go and sign loan agreements, but it does give you the flexibility to proceed with your project. And you can go up to that amount. We usually will ask for a bond election for a larger amount, but not using that full amount. Because what you don't want is you don't want the project to end up being more expensive than what they voted on and then have to go out for an election again. The other method that you could go about doing is what they call a judicial confirmation bond. That's where you present what your need is to a judge, and the judge takes a look at it, and then they make a ruling to determine if the improvements are ordinary and necessary. And if they deem that they are, then that can be the approval that you need to proceed with the project as well. So there's kind of two different ways that you can do it. I think that's all that I had.
Okay.
I reached my time limit. Done with.
So, and I've got some names of bond counsel, three names, and I'll share those with Wendy. There's a couple that specialize in small city bonds. The nice thing about bond counsel, they help you up front with the language of the process. You don't have to pay them until the bond passes, and so usually they're a good source of advice for you. So, Stillman and I have been working together to kind of think ahead in terms of where you might want to go. And I was recommending that the hearing on the facility plan should happen sooner rather than later, because ideally he's going to present the plan and have the range of options and have the preferred alternative, which you pretty much have an idea of what most of that's going to look like. But that should be presented. You should decide what that looks like to set up the process for the bond election, which should be in November. You're in great shape because Stillman set up the DEQ loan, which is for most of the cost of the project. RD doesn't have a set deadline. We know that. We're in communication with Howard. The block grant, however, has a specific deadline. It's the third Friday of November. So a bond election would occur, and then the bond grant application would go in. So that's kind of the chain of events between now and November. So as you know, we have to do an income survey to qualify for the block grant, and I did a mailing to the required number of households we had to hit. And it's not unusual we do these surveys, we don't get the number we need in the first round, so we're a little bit short. We're short about 50 to 60 out of the ones that I've sent out. So I have a balance list here remaining, so there are a couple of options we could do. I could do a second mailing, and then ideally follow up with phone calls. So if the list of residents, Wendy had access to phone numbers, we could call. Before we've had door-to-door with the city, they have a few folks go door-to-door. I don't know in the COVID situation how you feel about that. Some communities we've talked to, working team with them, they'll go door-to-door and say, you know, have you received the survey? Yes, I did. I might have tossed it, which probably might happen. Or, and we can do it now and hand them the survey, fill it out, put it in an envelope, and then I'll collect those. And I'm the only one who sees those results. So there's a couple options on the next step. So, you know, I could do a mailing. I want to get this all done within the next 30 days. So I think maybe a combination of the mailing and working with Wendy to reach out to folks and encourage them to respond would be a prudent step. So, not many came back. Postmaster must know everything. I would usually get a few return to senders, especially with apartments, but that was okay. So with your permission, I'll work directly with Wendy on the next steps on that.
So we need a motion?
I don't
I
need
think
a
so.
just let you know what we're gonna do and work with her so we can get the rest of them collected, so, appreciate it.
So, yeah, I guess in summary, the moving forward with the bond council and then seeing if we can set a date for this special meeting to present the facility plan and the environmental report to the public. So those are the two things that we need to be able to coordinate with Wendy on.
Were you saying, I know you wanted either, if we didn't do it at the next one, so you want to do one in August is what you're thinking, or September if we get a special meeting?
In August, and
Especially
as early in August as possible. Preferably when it's really hot and the AC is out.
So if you wanted the notice to go out, say on the bills, I won't do those until the end of the month.
Okay.
So they won't go out until August, or July 31st.
Okay.
So if you needed 2 weeks, then you would be, you know, more into that third week.
So the week after the council meeting.
Yeah.
Yep. I think that would work just fine.
Is that
The week of the
the
17th.
17th?
So any day that week, whatever week night you think that would work best for folks to come to, even if it's a Friday or a Monday.
We'll bring donuts. No, I should say Stillman brings, it's your budget, right? Donuts and soft drinks?
I guess I can.
It's a really bad week for me,
Is
so.
it like school starting?
I'm moving my daughter to college that
Oh,
week,
okay.
so, but, I mean, I'll just have to.
Well, you don't have to be there. You don't.
You know.
It's not a requirement that you have
If
to
we
be
can
there.
just not do it Wednesday.
Okay. Deal. Just let us know what day that week, and we'll just put it on the calendar, or I don't know if this is something.
Do you want to pick that now, or do you want to?
Say Tuesday. That's what
I
we
was
talked
gonna say, do you
about,
want to do
Tuesdays.
Tuesday?
I can't do Tuesday.
18th?
I am working graveyard Tuesday. I can do Thursday.
That's fine.
20th?
I guess so, sure.
Just want to do 7 p.m.? 7 p.m. Nobody's saying anything else.
7
Yes,
p.m. works.
that's great.
Thursday.
So hopefully everyone here in the audience comes that day too, because we'd like to have you there.
We might try to get power down from USDA. It's often good to have him in person talk about what they plan.
If I need an internet connection out here, I can set up a Zoom for it.
Yeah, he still can't travel.
And you say that doesn't need to publish in the paper, I can just post it in the window, I can put it on the bills, I can put it on the Facebook page.
I'll verify that to be
Okay.
1000% sure, but I don't think I've ever done a newspaper ad for that in the past. So, as long as people are being notified in some way. You can even do a reader board out in front of the city hall as well if you have one, so.
You stand out there with the little sign.
Holding a
The
board.
bell.
Hear you, hear you.
Yeah.
I guess I should have asked if there are any more questions about anything that we talked about. I know that we've gone through a lot of information on it.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's one more thing.
Do you have anything else?
I'm sorry. So, the last part of it, one of USDA's comments was with regards to whether or not your wastewater treatment plant would be required to put in the ability to treat for temperature. That's something new on the city's discharge permit. Our recommendation at the moment in the facility plan is to set up a less expensive temperature monitoring probe and to start collecting temperature data. Do you have an update on that?
Yeah, so when I went to Kendrick a couple weeks ago, they had a probe, and I took a picture, and Wendy looked it up online, and then Josh got online, and we found some probes. So we ordered them. They're supposed to be on the 15th.
Wednesday, yeah.
So we're gonna have a little bit of updated temperature data for you, and
And we need it to run for a year.
okay, yeah, it'll run
Yeah.
solid for a year. We're doing the river and F1, and I'm afraid it's gonna be a little eye-opening. I think the F1 temperature is gonna be
Yeah.
more, I think it's gonna vary during the day. Like, I only take it once a day in the morning, but I think in the evening it's gonna be higher and it'll get lower and higher, so it'll be interesting.
So what we talked about, this was another good reason to phase your project. So phase one would not include the temperature improvements if you need to do something. We have to have that data first before we're gonna tell you that you need to spend $500,000 on temperature upgrades or whatever it costs. We have a few options that we outlined in the report at the moment, but that may change depending on what we find out on the temperature data. So if we find out that you do need to do something, then phase two could include that. And so for the purposes of the bond election, we plan on including a dollar amount for temperature improvements just in case, so that you don't have to go back for bond approval for that portion if it's needed. But we're hoping that it's not needed.
It worked out well also because DEQ is requiring that we get some temperature information also. So This is part of what DEQ's asking them to do, and so they're on the right path. So now I'm done.
Thank you.
I will talk to you about that.
I have
There's been so much
one
going on
in
with
the
that.
box back there that was
It'll be
dropped off.
continuous.
Oh, they just said that.
It'll be continuously recorded.
Are you staying until the end of the meeting?
We'll just go later.
Okay.
And we can download it and send it directly to you in like the spreadsheet or whatever.
Yeah, however you can extract it from the probe
Yeah.
and send it to us in that format. So, thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, nice. So water
The
bill,
water leak and
water leak was fixed in a few days after it was put in my hands.
the broken hydrant.
I don't know anything about that, but you guys deal. I just thought, my insurance doesn't like this not working. So
Yeah.
I thought I needed to bring it up.
It's gotta be fixed, and it's gotta be fixed now.
I am well aware of that. And it worked after we got that valve replaced. And I'm not sure what happened, but directly after that, there was a bunch of digging and it quit working. So we are going to blow it out. We're gonna try to put some back pressure on it. If it's a clog, sand issue, then we'll try to put some back pressure on it and get it blown out. And if not, then we will dig it up.
So question, what would my digging in the back of the store have to do with the fire hydrant? It's a different line, right?
There's a lot of lines back there, and I have no clue what happened back there, but it worked. After we turned the line on, because I opened the hydrant,
I understand that, but I've only replaced my line.
I have no clue what happened
I
back
can
there.
show you what happened because I still have it dug up because I don't want to cover it and it is a mess back there until the hydrant is fixed. And it looks like World War III back there.
I know it is.
And
And
so
I
we
have no
need
idea
to do something.
what
I'm not gonna
happened.
wait another 4 months is my deal, like my water bill. That we need to discuss because I don't think that I should have to pay that water bill when you guys told me not to do anything, right or wrong. I should have to pay the $195 from the last month as far as I'm concerned. I paid the $300 or whatever my minimum was each month. So I'm almost $1,000 in the hole on the water bill, and I was told not to do anything. It was voted on, so I don't know how you guys want to take care of that.
Can we go back to the road? so we got two issues on the broken hydrant and the bill.
Yep.
So if we can go back to the broken hydrant. So obviously your insurance wants a working hydrant, I would imagine.
Yeah, they're gonna charge you more.
Sure. What would be the time frame for getting that blown out and everything, do you think?
I just spoke with
These guys?
I just spoke with Mike about it tonight, and we'll, as soon as he has some time to do it, we're gonna do it. He doesn't get off until the afternoons, and
Well,
Today was
we need to
5:40.
get on it as quick as possible.
Yeah, we'll get it.
Because
The-
what had happened if there was a fire there?
I'm aware, yeah, absolutely aware of that.
I mean, are we thinking we
Has to
can,
be
is
done,
it
you know,
by the end of the
done now.
week, is that reasonable? I'm not trying to, I'm just
No,
saying.
that's reasonable,
Is that, I
absolutely.
mean, is that, trying to order, I mean, I know 4 days
I
is
just
a
don't
long
want
time.
to go months again like we did
No,
last
that's
time. I
right.
wanna clean up the back of my store,
Yeah,
and
that's
I need
right.
to pay the people that, you know, need to come back in and bring their equipment in.
That's why I'm trying to get time for it.
So if it is a hydrant, we don't have to order one, there's like, you can get them in town, right? At,
Yeah.
okay.
There's nothing wrong.
That hydrant's kind of screwy anyway.
Yeah.
on a 4-inch line.
But man, it turns hard. I mean,
It does turn hard.
Oh, wow.
And the weird thing is when we replaced
Mike-
every pipe in the back that goes to the store, all new. And all those pipes were full of sediment. I mean, so that could be what's in the hydrant blocking.
Exactly, and that's why we're gonna blow it out before we dig.
I
But
think it's broke.
if we blow, we have to shut your water off.
Yeah.
I don't even know how it's hooked to my water, because you guys keep on saying it's.
All I know is if we put pressure to that, we have, unless you want your pipes full of sand, we have to shut your water off.
I've had my water shut off how many times in the last month?
Okay, just to tell you, when we back pressure that, we'll shut your water off.
Yeah, we didn't want to blow it in the store.
I don't think we wanna fill your lines,
I
your
don't have a
brand
problem with getting shut off my line.
brand
I
new
just
lines and
need
stuff.
to do it. Yeah, that's the one
And
they're
they
based on.
discolor everyone's water downstream from the store, so everybody down
That would be
past
us
Old
across the street.
Main,
Yeah.
It'll be us across the street at work.
Bob and Key, all those guys, so we can post it on Facebook that we're gonna do it, because
Yeah.
it would definitely.
Because every time we turned ours off and on or did something back there, it was discolored.
Yeah.
And you don't want to run it through your water heaters and, you know, all your stuff.
So,
Ice machine.
it's all water lines.
Yeah.
I don't understand really any of it other than.
Come on,
So-
get wood.
Once you guys blow that out, you'll know if
You
it's,
can't, you'll.
if the hydrant has to be replaced, correct? Or,
I can't remember what the
Um,
is there, static pressure.
We have,
No.
it's somewhere behind the valve to the hydrant.
so we think the hydrant's good, we think it's like, we don't know
The
that.
hydrant's stuff to open, but
Okay.
The hydrant
could
but it's
absolutely
okay.
use replacing, but there's nothing wrong with the hydrant.
Yeah, the
It's
hydrant's
just somewhere behind the valve, because if I close the valve to the hydrant, I get back pressure. But it's not a whole lot, so there's a plug somewhere.
It's all uphill. You know.
So just a question, if we're gonna be in this area anyway, and the hydrant is hard to turn, do we have anything in the budget to possibly just replace it
That's
while we're at it?
We're gonna have it all
And
done.
does that I assume comes out of the, what is that, the street or
And that comes out of water reserve.
water improvements? We have, and how much is a hydrant for that?
21. 22. What, yeah, it's
Did we
right.
get one last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in front of Nick's house.
Yeah.
Gotta be fixed.
But that's, I'm just thinking if it's, I mean, if we're gonna be into it anyway, and it is hard to turn, would it just be in our best interest just to replace it right now and not even, you know, and just do it?
I think there's a budget for it, we know it.
You might want to clean out the lines by itself. I mean, there was a lot of debris in there. I don't know.
So we could flush the lines and change out the
Yeah,
hydrant?
we can
Yeah,
get
we
it,
can do that.
we can get it open. I think,
Does that need a,
give it a heck of a.
It's open.
Huh?
It's open.
The hydrant's open.
a motion? I move to replace the hydrant at the Juliaetta Market.
Do we have a budget for it?
Well, if it's bad, we're gonna have to replace it anyway. What have we found in the budget, Bonnie?
I'm still looking,
Justin doesn't give us a rent yet either. He was supposed to give us about a rent, you can't hear it. I know.
Speak up.
I don't know if we have it in the water.
We don't.
So what happens if it's bad and we need to replace it, then where does it come from?
Fire department budget.
That was a use capital outlay,
Yeah, we use capital outlay.
because we've got 11,000 capital outlay underwater fund. We can push 3,000 somewhere with that.
Was that money earmarked for something else?
You never gave me a rent yet.
Yeah, but.
Oh, you need one?
Water. Shut up,
I
Keith.
said, you don't, you just got one.
No, you don't.
Oh, you don't?
Don't ever talk to Mike, talk to me.
In the budget for next school.
Yeah.
Mike doesn't know nothing.
Okay.
So that
Okay.
is very well.
Okay. So it sounds like we have money in capital outlay that we can transfer to the water budget and just take care of it.
Board out for a few minutes and then it just kind of withers.
Now, is that an hydrant that can be like refurbished and used somewhere else? Like once you take it out, like figure out why it's hard to turn?
It should
We
be,
can rebuild them, yeah.
yeah, you should be able
Well,
to. They're pretty simple,
but-
they're just like a frost-free hydrant. They're pretty simple.
But that particular hydrant only has two and a half inch
Oh, it
outlets.
doesn't have a 5
It
inch.
does not have a steam report on it, and the line going to it is not big enough to have a steam report on it.
That's true.
It's only a 4-inch line, and that steam report takes a 5-inch line.
But still by replacing it, it would be easier to turn.
Right.
And is there another spot in town where we could utilize that if we rebuilt it?
Across the river.
Yeah, send it across the river.
I'd really like to have one on the other side. Well, we can start charging them people for fire service if we had one over there.
That's a good idea.
Subscription service.
It's a real good idea.
So I think there's a motion on the table.
I'll second.
Motion second. To buy a fire hydrant.
Excellent.
Just for purpose that, not somebody serious the money.
I'll just get a rebuild kit for it, and we can get it rebuilt and put it across the river.
Probably over both of us.
So the ones that
So
lay.
in reference to the bill,
Yeah, that's what Frank told me.
the way I understand it is we've had 4 months
I gotta get on.
where we were,
Since March.
since March.
Okay.
Longer.
I was not at that meeting, so
And what is the total?
I
Yes.
don't have that in front of me.
I have it. Who wants it?
We'll pass it around.
I don't know when you guys read the meter, Geo.
The 20th of
That
every
one,
month.
Right around the 20th. Depending on how it lands in the week.
This month it should go down more, because it had gone down last month a little bit, but, you know, but this month it should.
And Laurie, just confirming, she's paid what her kind of average or normal would be each of those months?
Off the top of my
Does
head,
that
I think so, but
sound right? I
I
thought
don't
so.
have it with me.
I
I
tried
don't
to-
remember everybody's
Yeah.
information. I know, it's crazy.
It's like $300 or a little over $300, but she can figure that out. Whatever the difference is, I'll pay it. I tried to make sure and pay because that was my concern, that we were gonna pile up all this money and a lot of money out.
Let's see, we read it, let me see, when was it fixed? It
It's
has to be read,
fixed.
I mean, this month.
It was fixed last month, the meeting was on the 9th, it was fixed by the 16th.
The past due stamp on your bill means that I didn't receive a payment from you last month. Maybe I just haven't
Just
gotten it
wait.
yet. It's possible.
Yeah.
If you do the bill pay, sometimes that's delayed.
And I changed banks.
Okay.
I don't know when it's going. I figured that out later.
So we don't have an act, so our bill right now is the $1449.95, but the payment from last month hasn't posted to that, correct?
Well, according to that bill, like I said, I don't have her information in that one, so. I
And,
can go get it if you want to move on to something else, or.
I tried to,
Okay.
just wait. I figured that out later.
Okay.
Or we can figure it out, if that's what the difference is, I'll pay it, whatever she figures out.
Well, I think we need to see a more accurate, like if we can take a look and see.
Do you want to know?
Yes, please. We can just move on to maybe her again, I guess.
Will you take some notes for me?
Dick?
Well,
So we're up to the 50
and it's,
Main Street trees.
You what?
I drove by there several times and looked at it, and I with Jeff, and you've cleaned up a lot.
There's nothing there that doesn't run either. Like in some yards
Yeah,
that we could go through, but I don't think I need to put out people's names.
yeah, it was, a great improvement. I've been by there checking on it several times, so I appreciate it.
I'll tell Jeff.
Anyone else have anything?
I've noticed a lot of activity down there too, seeing stuff being moved around and greatly appreciate it.
Perfect. So I'm good to go on that aspect? What's that?
I said,
Okay, everyone else?
You guys actually read the ordinance?
They have to be running,
Well, not
Every one
necessarily.
of them run.
Not necessarily. There's some junk there. Some
There's
heavy
a
junk.
trailer there.
There's some heavy stuff on the sidewalk there.
And there is no sidewalk across from my house.
There is.
You don't even use the sidewalk, so I don't even know how you
Yes, I
know.
walk down there.
No, you don't.
Yes, it
You
is.
walk uphill now.
There is
Just like you're not
there's
walking at all.
heavy junk out there in front of there on the right of way.
On the what?
On the right of way, there's heavy junk. There's 2 big pieces of heavy junk at least.
There's a trailer sitting there.
There's a trailer, yes, and there's also 2 big pieces. One's hydraulic and one's big piece of square metal thing.
And that's gonna go in my yard. It's gonna move right across the street.
Yes.
Okay.
So like once those 2 big pieces are.
I'll be happy, yes.
Good.
Perfect.
perfect.
He just hasn't had time to move them.
Looks like we're making progress, which is good,
Thank you.
at least in my book. And I'm glad you 2 can talk it out and somebody
Yeah.
got a plan. So, no, right here.
There's no plan with us.
To get that moving, hopefully we'll be good.
well, we'll be going to the budget. And then,
Would you mind if I made a comment? My name is Tom Crooks, I live at 172 State Street, and the last council meeting I addressed the torn up condition of the fire lane in the back of my house. And I know that the city employees may not get enough attaboys, but the ladies were right on it. They patched up the big ruts, mowed the grass down, it's 100% better. So, I want to pass that on to your crew, Mr. Mayor. Give them 2 attaboys.
That's always nice to hear.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
them girls are very good hard workers.
And it was like 2 days or something after the meeting? It wasn't very long.
What was that?
It wasn't very long
Almost
after
a
the meeting.
day. Yeah, very fast work.
Okay, our budget is, the county budget, we worked on it for months to figure out for
might have to just call
Yeah, maybe.
Normally we hear by August, don't we, before our budget hearing?
Yeah, usually in August we start here.
them.
But this one is, I put increases in for wages and there's I had to up it for different items that, like police, the water rates, and the sewer rates, and the garbage rates will go up. And it's just, you know, it takes a lot of time and effort to make one of these jobs. It isn't just a 2-minute job and figure out all this and where the money needs to be spent. And you're hoping that everybody pays the property tax and sales tax and gas tax and all that highway user fund comes in. As you we have
Well, if you notice too, I printed out what we currently have as the first column, what we actually have used so far. Then your current budget for this year, and you can compare to what Dick and I did, so you know what's going up and what's going down. I just thought that would be nicer to see the difference than just what the budget is going to be next year, so.
Can I ask you a question? I was wondering, did we check, I know that the sheriff's department kind of all of a sudden raised their rates on us last year.
Yeah, we did in consideration of that, we
Okay,
raised, yeah, because if you look, yes, we raised that.
I saw, I wanted to, did we check or did we get an inkling that they're gonna drop another?
They never tell you,
I know,
they
right.
never tell you until you get the bill.
Darn.
and like I say,
Oh,
they never say it until after it's.
So, okay, fair enough.
Until we
But it looks like you guys,
We have
got
already
it.
laid out, so you have to surmise that they are going to raise it.
okay, thank you, that sounds like you guys are on it then, good work.
well, like Vista went out in January, so we're kind of figuring that in and added a little more to that. So it's kind of like what went on last year, we're kind of hoping we can.
Yes, it did.
Or-
Sure.
It is. You didn't make that payment, you just made that payment for management. If you don't understand anything, you can ask me later. We're still on the 7th month, we're still on the 7th month.
About how many gallons, well, it's not like a gallon. If you had that leak, you don't know how much water you use on a normal month.
I'm sure you could average it out over her
Yeah.
previous, last year's usage or what have you.
But this doesn't.
That doesn't, that's just giving you what's been paid. Do you need meter usage also?
Oh, not really now. I'll check on that.
Maybe better if they decided after next month, isn't it be
And,
a whole month maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be a full month of it being fixed.
Yeah.
if you need to know her average, you know.
Whatever works.
Now, that should be better, it should be the same if not better than it was before.
I don't,
Because
maybe, is it 6,000 a month?
well, 6,000 is the
6,000 is
base.
the cap on the
Yeah.
base, right?
But because of the way that leak looked, like it didn't just happen right away.
No.
So it progressively, your bill progressively got bigger and bigger. So with that being fixed, your bill should be
Really
a
low.
lot better than it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's been going on for years, like I said.
So do we want to table this until we see what a month?
I think
Action
we
was.
will, I think we need
Yeah, I table it.
and then that way,
Good with that.
we will find out, a couple of months, and then we know how much savings.
Some nights we do.
I move to table the Laurie's water bill until next month and get a more accurate reading of what you're actually using.
I'll second.
All in favor?
So do you think testing?
So then we're just back to the, we're all done too, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Gonna go back to the budget.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Never have that, sir. You want it?
Ow!
So the only thing on the budget that's gonna change is that, and that's out of this year's budget, correct, the $3,000? Or is that out of this budget? Or,
It'll be, this year, but not this one.
okay, that's all I have.
It's just here, you're starting to. Is all, and it is. Has to drive to
Get our money.
see which one, find out exactly what to buy.
Did we adopt the tentative budget?
Not yet.
I just didn't know if we missed it or not.
It has to be advertised and all, so.
So by adopting, this just kind of, like you're saying, tentative, and it goes on to the public and
So after it's adopted, the tentative budget is adopted, then I'll publish for the budget hearing next month, so I'll publish before then. But I have to have something to publish.
Sure. Well, I guess I'd make a motion to adopt the tentative budget so we can get it out to the public to take a look at, so it's ready for the August 11th meeting.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Passes. What's the rate,
And we're still just kind of looking to see if there's anything we want to change on these, correct?
Yes, nothing is going to be set in stone tonight. So on page 3, this one it starts. I talked to Dick today, and when he did the budget, it looks like we raised the water rate, the base rate $2, as well as the sewer rate, which is above the 3%, so we will have to have that, it will have to be told at the public hearing as well, so everyone knows that that's what's going to happen. I talked to Amanda at Latah County Solid Waste about the garbage rates. We've been raising them 50 cents for the roll carts, and I think it was last year that we more significantly changed the dumpster rates to match what the county had. And I wrote in the county what the county rates are for the current year next to it, just so you guys can get an idea. She explained to me how they determine all of these rates, or how they really should be determined, because it's more than just Lake County Solid Waste picking it up. You also have to factor in the disposal, you factor in the other programs that are offered, like the recycle bins and the bulky waste site and the tire, day. You know, all of those things have to be factored in. So, I mean, we can kind of just go by what the county charges and do it that way. Or she said she'd be happy to come down and talk to everyone and just give everybody some more education about it. I cannot do it justice the way she explained it, so I'm not even going to try. But we could have her come down next month, and she could talk to you about that, so you can make a more educated decision on what to charge for the garbage rates.
I think that's a good idea.
I do too.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just curious as to why we didn't change our extra bag fee to match the county just up there this year.
I don't know when the counties went up. I may have been going by, so I think Lake County Solid Waste, they charge us, where is it? $287.
Oh, so we are above what we get charged.
But if you factor in the disposal cost, that's where it goes higher.
Okay.
I think the county's rate is a little bit high myself. But again, she could explain that way better than I can. The roll card exchange fee doesn't come into play too terribly often, and that's when people, well, they want a smaller size or a bigger size. They charge the exchange fee just so people aren't every other month switching out their cart size, just depending on how much garbage they're going to have.
So our current rates, are they adequate for what we're getting charged or what we're paying for?
Well, according to the auditor, you know, we were sitting, I think, pretty well in the sanitation fund, but their rates will be going up just like everybody else's, so she might be able to offer a little bit more insight as to what that will be. Like I said, the rates that I penciled in are county's rates and the current year's rates. I don't know what their rates will increase to, because she gives all the information to her county commissioners and they make that determination.
Well, I definitely think it'd be a good idea to have her come down and give us a little more education. I mean, I have ideas, but things have changed.
It's been a little while.
10 years almost.
I will give her a call and see if she can't come down to next month's meeting. But in the meantime, you can look at the rest of the rates and see if there's anything that you think ought to be changed or leave it alone. Most of this has been the same for quite some time. Really, the only thing that we usually change are the water, sewer, and garbage rates. I think we changed the tapping fees or the connection fees a few years ago.
I thought we did that a couple years ago.
Probably the first time that we did the all-encompassing fee resolution.
I think I may have mentioned this last time, I think it needs more work for you, Wendy. I was wondering,